Hi, Freya. How
Hi.
are you? So great to see you. Excellent. Great. We've got a bunch of friends joining. Hi, friends. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us tonight. We're really lucky, and we're going to spend some time with Brea Corcoran. And I'm just going to pull up my little notes here so I don't forget. Just want to say hi to everybody. I'm Amy Regan from Seesaw Art here in Manchester, New Hampshire. And we're so lucky to have Brea Corcoran joining us tonight. Let's see. So Brea was born in 2000 in Framingham, Massachusetts, and is a painter now based in Portland, Maine. They received their BFA in painting from Massachusetts College of Art and Design in 2022. Brea is primarily focused as a portrait artist and is also focused on creating intimate and colorful depictions of friends, family, the self, and as well as the environments around them. So we're very lucky to have you here tonight. Thanks so much for joining all the way from Portland. I love that you can be sort of anywhere. I'm like still fascinated by the internet. I don't think that'll ever. Excellent. So most of the works, or all of the works, I dare say, are in acrylic that we have on exhibition. So can you tell us why you like working with acrylic so
Yeah.
much?
I think probably my favorite thing about acrylics is the immediacy of it. It kind of forces you to like work pretty quickly, because it dries so quickly. Um, Also, my process is a little bit chaotic, but I typically like don't really know what I'm doing until I've looked at it.
Yeah.
So I just like throw everything down on the surface, and then like depending on whether or not it works, like I might paint over the whole thing. So like acrylic works well for that too. If I decide like, oh, actually the green like doesn't go, I'm gonna change it to blue. Pretty easy to like just go right back over it. So um, yeah.
How often are you sort of working through something like that where you realize like, okay, this isn't going in the direction that I thought? Does that happen all the time, or is it
It's
something that
like all the time.
I think that's encouraging, right? Oh my
Yeah, and then sometimes I'll just like kind of stumble upon the point where I'm like, oh, it really works. But like often I feel like I'm like fighting for my life like 90% of the time. Oh, we got
Oh
this.
my goodness, that's so funny. Definitely. One of your favorite pieces that's on view for me is this piece that's directly behind me. It's called Nick at Night, and it is such a gorgeous portrait and feeling and moment. It's such a cute size too. Like it's just all around it is so much of my like favorite pieces. What for you in that specific piece resonates with you? Because I get the feeling that that's one of your, maybe something newer that you really enjoy. So what do you think is really successful in that work?
I think for me, after I graduated 2022 and I like finished my thesis, I kind of took a step back from like hyper conceptual work, and became more interested just in like noticing moments. So that was like a moment from my life that I really enjoyed, and like the colors and the shapes really stood out to me. And it like provided a lot of room for me to like play with the colors and the shapes and the composition. So it was really fun to paint, and it came together like pretty easily
Mm.
and pretty quickly. Um, yeah.
Definitely. I'm going to show some close-ups of some of the works that we have on view. I'm going to just grab my camera while we're chatting a little bit. But one thing that I did want to ask you was that there's some imagery in these works that we have on view that are very much about still life. And I wondered if you could tell us what draws you to create these scenes. Not saying they're arbitrary, but a lot of them, they must be speaking to you in some way. So can you tell us about that? And I'm going to show some of the works on view while you're chatting.
Yeah. So I consider myself like primarily a portrait artist, but not everything I paint is like strictly a portrait in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
But I think of everything pretty much either like a conventional or an unconventional portrait. It's just kind of
Yes,
all
I love that.
portrait. And all of my work for the most part is like autobiographical. It's about my life and things from my life. So you'll get to it in a minute, but there are, yeah, that one, oops,
I love this.
handle
Yeah.
and the photos. Usually when I'm painting like objects like that like look like a still life, the objects are like stand-ins for
Mm.
people, kind of like a metaphor for people. So this one specifically, I used to be in like a pretty close-knit friend group of 3 people,
Yeah.
and that like fell apart as I like, changed as a person,
Yes.
talk to those people at all anymore.
Wow.
Um, so that's kind of representative of like that.
I
Um,
love
and with
I love the candle still burning, which I instantly see like as you.
yeah, you
Like I'm still here. I'm not
um,
changing.
so with those like unconventional portraits, sometimes it's like important to me that like people like can pick up on those narratives, and maybe I'll
Yeah.
that in the title, but sometimes it's not. It's just what draws me to the subject.
Right.
And then if people perceive that, that's great, and if not, that's okay too.
Definitely. And specifically with this piece here, like this totally exemplifies my question. What's like a little background on this one, which is entitled Untitled Studio Corner?
That's the corner of the studio where that's kind of like a portrait of me and my
I love
partner.
that.
In a sense.
Yeah,
Um, we recently moved in together and are living together for the first time. And also I have like a home studio for the first time.
that's great.
The corner
Yeah.
of my studio, and also kind of representative of the cozy life I feel I'm living
Aw.
with them. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and the symbol of light and how close you both are on the table, which I think is very sweet. Speaking of your partner, I believe that's
Hmm.
them,
Yeah.
which was so much fun. During the reception, Brea and Nick came in, and I said, "Oh, I feel like I already know you because I do this portrait, just the sweetest." We had a lot of interest in this piece during the reception because of the color choices, and specifically the color on the purple above the eyebrow and the yellow. I really just love those colors, and sort of what prompted you to add those in that way. It's a little something that I haven't really seen before.
Um, Usually my like unconventional color choices are just hyper exaggerations of like any hint of color
I
that might
love that.
be reflected or in the skin tone. Um,
Yeah,
Really like push it to the extremes.
for sure. And I love, this one's called Cumbies Run. So we see that blue and the
Yeah.
orange behind, which I love. And I love the glance in that feeling there. That's really great. Definitely. Let's see. I'm gonna just run around. And I noticed that for this piece here, is this a
Yeah,
self-portrait?
it is.
Excellent. I can tell like just by your eyebrow. I'm like, I think that's her.
Yep. I
The
know.
color is so beautiful here, and that blue shadow, and then the golden orange light. And I'm like such a partial person to anything neon. And that little hint of yellow on the left there is just like so gorgeous to me. So, can you tell us a little background on this piece?
Yeah. That kind of like bridges glow is supposed to be coming from.
Yeah, yeah.
It's candle painting, but
I love the pink. Now that I'm looking at the piece so closely, I can see it right on the fingers there, and I think that's so beautiful. And it's good to know that it's a candle because I was thinking maybe it was another thing that you sort of hold close to your face while you light it. I'm like,
that's
I'm not sure.
so
I'm
it's
fine with either,
that.
but I'm like, okay, that makes more sense to me now. Yeah, patrons have really loved this work as well, and I think it's because of that color choice, and also like you think of a portrait. I mean, you've got to have their eyes in there, so I love that choice to put the hand in obscure. Speaking of that work that you were talking about from your thesis, now I think this may be something along that vein where it's more conceptual and a little bit more staged.
Hmm.
Love the color in this as well. And there's such a story here, just with the shadow in the hand. Like, I was thinking a lot about pool work because of Elizabeth Melanchuk, who's in the exhibition. So I was like, are they swimming? Are they reaching for help? Are they saying goodbye? It's called Hello Goodbye, but you kind of can't really tell if it's coming or going. And I think that that's really expert in this piece for sure.
Thank
Let's see.
Yeah, everyone has a really different interpretation of what that is, and I love that. Please let people think what they want to think because it's always so different.
It really is, and that's part of the fun of having an exhibition is you get all these different ideas and like sometimes it's close to what you're thinking and sometimes it's not and between the patrons or, you know, the curator and everybody seeing the work, it's always really fun. I learn from
Yeah.
each exhibition right until the day that like it comes down. I'm like, "Oh, that's what the show is about." Like every single time. I love that. This was so abstract that it really helped me like hang the whole wall here and I kind of made a little bit of a story just based on that. I thought that that was a really fun way to include it. Another piece that we have that I love so much is this piece called Classico, um, which is perfect because I think of the jar that's in the hand, and it just seems like really, really free, and you can really see the progression in your work here. This piece is from 2024, so it's like fresh off the presses. I
Hmm.
love the like the little bit of lace that's on the sleeve here, and just this moment. You know, it's a really simple moment, but at the same time, it says a lot. Reminds me to hydrate too, which is good. I always need help reminding to hydrate. Oh my goodness. And then, yeah, we have Nick at Night here, which is just like an absolutely gorgeous and very loving portrait. Some of my favorite moments in this is the purple in the background on the houses. Like I can just see that. And it's a private moment that you're sharing, which is really beautiful. Um, yeah, so thank you so much for this piece. I'm just so in love with it. Oh my goodness. So what's coming up next for you? What are you working on? Ideas or shows or and no pressure either if you're like I'm just hobbling down and enjoying my studio practice.
Yeah. Um, the next, like, I don't really have a ton of shows right now on the horizon. But the next thing I think I'm gonna participate in, one of my like artist Instagram circle people told me about this show at Bowie Gallery.
Yes.
Yeah, Art PM, they've been doing it for 15 years. And they just like hang up as much as they can put on the walls. So that sounds really fun. I'm really looking forward to that. I think I'm going to participate in that. Um, in terms of like ideas, I'm a big reader. That's like
Oh,
and
yeah.
paint. That's like it. Those are my two hobbies. But I've been wanting to do a like literary series for a long time. And I just finished the book Middlemarch by George Eliot,
Hmm.
and gorgeous moments and quotes and ideas in there that I'm starting kind of like a series based off of that book. So yeah, just kind of like burrowing down in my studio practice and working on that.
I love that. And I think that, you know, using that literary example is a great way of sort of like stepping out of your own perspective.
Hmm.
I think about that all the time. It's like I only think in one way or two ways. So it's really cool to like pull that from a book. And I have to read that book actually because I do love George Eliot's work. And there, you know, it's a sort of a different idea, which is fun. And it almost feels a little bit like an assignment,
Yeah.
right? Like you want to represent it and then there isn't any like real answer. Just like when you go see the movie for the book, you're like, no, no, no. That person doesn't look like that. So I love that too because there's almost like a built-in audience. So anybody who's a fan of that book will resonate with that. I think that's
Hmm.
smart. And I'm glad that you brought up Bowie. I love the Bowie Gallery so much. What Al does over there is so inspiring. And my husband's working really hard to get a couple pieces done in February. And it's just like the best. like inspiring show. I go every year and I scout artists, and I think I found 3 or 4 artists there last year that I ended up working with. So it's a really fun way to get yourself out there, and it's like really accessible. You get him the piece and he gets it up, and it ends up being like seriously like 600 pieces of artwork. It's insane. And
Yeah,
so,
it was like on my radar last year, but I didn't like make anything like in time. But yeah,
yeah.
like, this is so much fun. Like you definitely should participate. I was like, okay.
For sure. And what's fun too is like since they've been doing it for so long, there's such a range of artists. I kind of feel like with some group shows it's like one like style in a way or like one
Mhm.
crowd, but it's been happening for so long and it's so accessible that you have artists who it's their first show or their 1,000th show. And I just love that idea. And it's the best too because there's a restaurant right next to them. So you can like go and get a glass of wine and like that's why they're open from 3 to 10 is because like they're just open when the restaurant's open, which I just think is so much fun. So I can't wait to see that. It's funny too because pre-pandemic that was a show that got canceled. They had the reception plan, the show was good to go. It was right around that time where we were
Mhm.
all so nervous and I remember being so upset. But it also like informed the way the show happens because they decided like we're not going to do a reception because no matter what, there's like 400 people in the show and they're all going to come and it's like insane. So it's like you come and you have your own time and you get to spend time with the work. And Al was saying that he would work so hard to get the work done by that one date. And he's like, I'm not doing that. It'll be ready when it's ready, and then we're gonna go from there. It's on view until May, and I just like love all the learnings, from like that typical sort of thing. But oh, that makes me so excited. I can't wait to see what you exhibit in that. Definitely. Let's see. If anybody has any questions for Berea, please pop them in the chat. We've got her attention, so we're very lucky. Um, let's see. Unless there's anything else that you wanted to chat about or kind of bring up, the last question that I have is like being a practicing artist is a really difficult thing to do. So, what makes you keep coming back? You kind of get burnt out a little bit, or you need a break, or what keeps you into coming back to the studio and continuing to create?
That's a great question. Um, I think, I mean, there's obviously like a lot of different answers, but one thing is like my peers, and just see like people I'm connected to on the internet, seeing what they're doing often is like really inspiring. And it like gets me fired up to work on stuff. Also like consuming other media in all forms, books and movies and television, often that's like really inspiring to me. And so I'll think that I'm like relaxing, having like a movie night, turn my brain off, and then I'm like, oh my God, no, actually like this scene, I have to go draw that right now. Um, yeah, and then just like when I do like get burnt out, it like I'll get burnt out, but then pretty quickly get like really bored if I'm not like making something. So kind of it's like cyclical. It just kind of like feeds back in and then I'm ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that too. Every night I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a break. It's like that's where I get the best ideas because I don't have the pressure on. And I really resonate with that too. Whenever, I sort of know that I need a break, I see other exhibitions that I'm very candid about this. Like I'll just get jealous and be like, oh, I love that. Like I know I can do something like that that's in
Yeah.
the same way or,
I think
somebody's space they've sort of
we all
figured out.
feel that way, you know, and yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Oh, that's so funny. Our friend Senator Davis wants to know what you're drinking.
I'm drinking a pomegranate,
Ooh.
big, big seltzer person.
I've got my coffee cup, which may or may not be filled with some grapefruit like vodka premixed drink that I found in the gallery fridge. And let's see, Suze is wondering if you're looking to do some commission work, if you'd be open to that.
Yeah, I'm kind of always doing commission work on
Oh,
like
yeah.
basis. Um, Reach out to me and we can talk about it. If I'm like really busy doing other stuff, I'll tell people like, next month or whatever, then we can circle back. But
That's great. I'm so glad to hear that. I feel like that's such a smart thing for artists to do, and kind of it's another one of those things where it's like an assignment that's going to like get you out of your like normal sort of thinking. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a compliment where someone's saying like, I love your style. I would love to see like this idea in your style, which has got to be such a good
Yeah,
feeling.
exactly.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It has been great to see everybody, and I really appreciate Brea and your time and participating in this exhibition. I'm really proud of this one. I am typically of all of them, but it just sort of it just like came together really well, and I'm like so happy with it. Oh, Senator Davis has another question. What are your other creative outlets between besides reading and painting?
That's kind of it.
That it's so funny. I know I feel the same way. I now see cooking as a way of like being creative and not, and
Mm,
it's one of the like rare non-screen things that I do. I
yeah.
work in front of a computer all day and like do the gallery stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have a break and I'm gonna follow my recipe that I like insist on printing out and three hole punching and like putting in my binder of
No,
like every
I-
recipe I've ever done, which is like so nerdy, but it's like, I'm gonna just sit here and like chop my chives. And I'm a huge podcast fan, so listen to my favorite podcasts, and I see it as like that's such a nice creative thing to do that's non-typical creative. This is great. Sue says that your work is amazing and they're happy to own one of your paintings. Can we all be so lucky? Well, if anyone wants to come by and see the exhibition, Heatwave is what it's entitled, and it is on view until February 25th. I have regular open hours here in Manchester, and then also at seesaw.gallery/visit. I have an appointment booking app, so I'm available all the time to be able to come down and show the exhibition. So thank you so much, everybody, and really appreciate it, Brea. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you. Good night.